Welcome back to the Indiewood podcast. We are a podcast about indie filmmaking and indie filmmakers and the many, many hats we wear in order to get those movies made. I am Jaroslav Altunin. I'm a writer-director. I've been an editor for about 15, 20 years almost at this point. It's been a long time. I'm a screenwriter as well. I have an MFA in screenwriting from UCLA. I've worked with Netflix. I've worked with Silver Pictures. I've worked with currently Dark Horse, trying to get something off the ground with them. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun the last couple of years. Thank you. And I'm also a director, so I've kind of had an opportunity to wear many hats, and I love having this platform to talk with other creatives who wear many, many hats, just so we can learn how to be better filmmakers. Because our tagline is, we all want to be Hollywood, but first we have to be Indiewood. Yeah. So with me today, I have the wonderfully talented Allie Rae Treharne.
Hi.
Who is a actor, producer, theater maker. I think that's a good term for it, and aspiring writer. And you've done a lot of things, and your journey is very unconventional too, getting to Los Angeles. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. This is your first time on the pod.
Yeah.
Hopefully not last time. At least, not last, because you're going to be on for a couple episodes. But I want to talk to you a little bit about your journey, because you're an actor first. And I feel like every time I talk to an actor, their journey is always very different to getting in front of a camera, on set, on a show, on a stage. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of had a really interesting journey of being born in Utah, being raised in Japan, moving back to Utah, and that's where your filmmaking journey started.
Good memory.
Thank you. Yeah. So
Nice.
Tell me about Utah to LA.
I moved back to Utah when I was 18
Mm-hmm.
from Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So I did most of my schooling in Tokyo. I graduated high school there. And I always grew up doing the arts, like the school plays and art class, and I did a lot of visual arts and singing and choirs and all that stuff.
In Japan?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, just really, really involved there. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be an artist in, whether that's a painter.
You are an artist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you've done a lot of art, and we'll talk about it, but continue, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm warming up to that. I do like that label a lot, and I am way more comfortable using it these days.
I just interrupt you for 1 second, because I have the same thing where I got into grad school for screenwriting, and I'd been writing for a long time, and I still wouldn't call myself a writer. Mm-hmm. And it was such a difficult journey to be to embrace the label. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear your journey with that, because it's hard. Mm-hmm. The imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. 100%.
So you're in Japan. You're doing a bunch of art.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, and I went back so far just because I think a big part of my Utah journey was I went to college and I did not study any of that. I studied advertising with a minor in Japanese.
I studied English lit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like English poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And
very useful for my career.
And I essentially got a business degree because I was just really, I think, kind of just discouraged externally from my community and other people from pursuing the arts. And then at my college as well, it didn't work out. I couldn't even get into an acting class.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah. So I really couldn't.
Now, is that because they wouldn't let you in, or is just your own kind of stuff holding you back?
Both. I couldn't get into any of the art programs I wanted to. And then also I literally couldn't take the next level of acting classes because when I was going there, at least BYU has an issue with it had there were so many students and so many classes were backed up, and it was competitive to even just get into certain classes. So anyway, basically the point is I didn't even really take acting class BYU.
Mm-hmm.
I studied advertising, and I kind of just like squashed my dreams and was like, well, I'm just going to do a business degree because that's more practical. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with that degree, I went back and I worked in Tokyo for a while in advertising. Not a while. I did like an internship there for a few months.
That's still a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in Japan that's like a different speed too, because they work hard.
Yeah.
They play hard, but they work hard.
Yeah. It was a lot of playing hard and working hard for sure. Oh God.
I've seen Lost in Translation.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to party.
Just like that. And so and then I came back to Utah, but while I was in Tokyo, I like realized I got a job offer in advertising at the end of my internship, and I didn't take it because I was like, I actually think I want to act, and like this just isn't hitting for me.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I went back to Utah, and then I started to sort of like pursue it in earnest while also working, using my degree to like pay for rent and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're in Utah. You're working a day job, let's call it, or I don't want to call it a day job. I want to call it the job that supports the arts, because I think a lot of people have those, and they're really important. And sometimes there's synergy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're auditioning for stuff that's local and also out of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at the time, the film community there was pretty, like I was auditioning, and I did a lot of local projects, and I took every local art class I could find. I mean, acting class I could find, and I took every local acting class I could find that was like, oh, a teacher's coming in from LA, and I'm going to take his class and stuff. And eventually, just like through this, I just kind of like hit a ceiling. Like I saw like the same actors like on every level of production in Utah, and I saw kind of like a pattern of like, it was just very much like I just felt like I hit a ceiling.
Okay.
And then occasionally there were auditions because for like LA shows, because they were shooting in Utah. And yeah,
and that's mostly like Westerns, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of Westerns. But at the time there was a lot of other stuff too, because I'm not sure exactly what, I think Utah had more tax breaks for filmmakers at the time when I lived there. So there was a bigger variety of projects being shot. So what I ended up booking was a YouTube original show back when YouTube Red was a thing.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, some of my favorite shows were on YouTube, and I'm like an avid YouTube watcher. There was a web series called something about dorms. It was like one of the first web series, and it was just pure comedy. And then a lot of those actors went on to like ABC Family shows.
Yeah.
So I remember that era. It was good.
Yeah.
What was the show?
It was called Youth and Consequences. There's a lot of people who
Venn diagram overlap there. Okay, very cool. Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, I booked. I just booked like a guest on it, but at the time, like my personal life was in shambles.
Sorry, not to laugh, because I get it. I was like, no. I have been there too. Yeah.
It was in shambles. It was absolutely in shambles. And I was going through a divorce. And so I just like really, really showed up to this project, you know. I would just it's kind of felt like my one sort of like light at the end of the tunnel, because I just wasn't happy in Utah, and I wasn't happy in my life, and I don't think I was fulfilled like creatively, you know. I was doing a lot of stuff that I loved, and like I had an improv group there that I love, and I miss them so much. IOTJ.
What are they called?
Group? In on the Joke.
Okay, that's
improv.
A good name.
IOTJ,
like
baby.
Like
it was so fun. We went so hard. It was so fun, and like so. That was like, you know, I was still doing my own stuff like that, you know, and like had a really amazing community and stuff. But yeah, anyway, booked this thing. I was like, this has to work because, you know, I have nothing else.
Yeah.
And and I just kind of like poured everything into like really killing this project. And on this set, that's where I met like my managers that like invited me out to LA.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then from that, you know, you ended up doing a bunch of other shorts, some features, and then you ended up on Atypical.
Yeah.
For 2 seasons. So you ended up getting rep from this YouTube show, and then you moved to Los Angeles, and you ended up on...
One of the producers ran a production company, and the show was so awesome and so fun, and yeah, it was just so supportive, and it just really allowed me to kind of like do my thing. And then he was like, I run a production company. We also represent talent in LA. And Oh, also at the time, I just told everyone on the set that I was moving to LA.
Okay.
I didn't have
Yeah.
a plan to do that. I was, I
You,
was,
yeah, you
I felt
should.
very much
Yeah.
trapped in Utah. But I think part of my getting out of the situation, which I felt really trapped in, was like just telling people like I'm moving to LA.
It's aspirational.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look what happened from
I
that.
truly
Yeah.
just faked it. Yeah. And so then people on set were like, I heard you're moving to LA. And I was like, mm-hmm. And they'd be like, when? And I'm like, soon.
TM. Yeah.
Next month. And they were like, great. Well, we want to work with you. So I was like, I guess I'm moving to LA now. So I kind of like leading with that. I truly just kind of, yeah. I mean, a lot of this point in my life is also a blur because it was a really hard, like dark time, you know. And like a big reason I moved to LA wasn't just for my career. A big reason was to like physically remove myself from the situation I was in and like start my life over and get out of this relationship I was in.
Over,
yeah. And so a big part was just like I need to get out as soon as possible. So I kind of just I just kind of bounced with the clothes on my back and, you know, threw my shit in a trailer and drove to LA. Yeah.
That feels like a typical LA story because, you know, for me, it's always been like I'm going to end up in LA. And then so many things happened in my life that kept me from doing that.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, I'll graduate high school and I'll end up in Los Angeles and make movies. And then like a decade later, I get there.
People will keep you.
Yeah.
People will keep you too. Because I think like, yeah, I don't know if there's a way to like, to move where you can convince everyone in your life that it's a good idea and you can get the full support of your family and community. I don't think like I think because I did try that for many years too, and my situation kept me from doing that.
And I mean, I will say, moving to Los Angeles to pursue film and television is not a good.
If that's like your sole purpose.
Yeah, and like for a lot of people, it is. Like for me, it's I can't do anything else. Like I'm just gonna live in entertainment my entire life, and there's moments where I've been utterly terrified because I'm like, oh, what do I do for bills? Like, what do I do for a career? Like, I don't have savings. I don't. What's a 401k? And then like you know, getting older, you kind of find stability and you find your community and things get better. But that initial kind of like jump off a cliff without you know being like, oh, I'll just try this thing.
It's not a move of stability for sure.
No,
and it's not dependable. Yeah. I think if anything, it's more of like a spiritual leap.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people when they get into entertainment, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to try this thing. I'm going to try the writing thing. I'm going to try the acting thing. And for them, with that kind of mindset, there's always one foot out the door. And I think when you fully like embrace the leap, like, you know, I'm just going to dive into it and just hit things on the way down and I'm going to hurt and it's going to suck, but it's going to be exhilarating because I'm flying.
100%.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. I saw it as kind of like the metaphor in my mind for the move was kind of like, I felt like I was trapped in a dark cave.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go, but I felt like there was a light at the end of the cave.
Very
and
biblical.
It wasn't a cave, it was a tunnel.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because I'm Mormon, well, ex-Mormon, but
it's
I've read the Bible multiple times. Yeah. So yeah, it was like, I was like, oh, it's not a cave. I mean, it feels like a cave, but you have to have faith. It's not a cave. It's a tunnel. And I see a tiny, tiny, tiny little light
run towards it.
and I'm going to, stumble towards it. And it's very much that instead of like, I know exactly what I'm doing and I can see exactly what lies ahead of me. It's just kind of this immediate act of self-preservation and faith and intuition.
That does feel a little bit like writing a movie where you have this arc, and I've used this analogy in my life, and I think that's what's helped me get into all these kind of programs and whatnot that have helped my career. I'm using the analogy of like that, was it like second half of Act 2 where there's a death and something has to die? Because even your analogy is like
the
that
low point.
Yeah, your analogy feels very much like you're dying, but like getting reborn into something else, which is what happened, you know. And I think in art that is such a constant, like that idea of like this, I have to just destroy things for art and then I'm reborn into something better. With every project I feel that way, every script I feel that way. Like this last thing that I did was in New York, this like big thing I directed in New York, which was a web series. At the end of it, I felt there's so much of me that had died, but like in a good way, you know, and I was being like born from a womb. And it's exhilarating, but also terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, totally.
So when you moved to Los Angeles, having kind of arrived here through a rebirth of some sorts, how, like, what tools did you have, and how did you kind of learn to manage the anxieties of being an actor in Los Angeles,
Oh my
especially
gosh.
one that like really kind of hit her stride, I think, right as the pandemic was just about to pop off.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Isn't that so many people's stories?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Those first few years in LA, it was such a whirlwind. And like I said, I think I was leading with this sort of spiritual reckoning with my life,
Mm-hmm.
that my acting career, it was there, and I like working on it. It was in the front of my mind, but also I couldn't touch any of that if I didn't figure out, like, if I didn't somehow like heal and move on and figure out like what was happening here. Um so I don't know, like I don't really know what happened. It feels like it was 3 years of, first of all, just like intensive exploration, which
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a mode of healing I found, because I felt like growing up so conservative and Mormon and then being in this marriage, I felt like I'd never had my 20s. And so moving to LA, I think too, a lot of people really move here and like kind of just like try shit out and
Yeah,
like find
yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
And it was very much that, like everything that came up was like, I'll try that, I'll try that, I'll try that. Even if it was not a really healthy thing, if it was, also healthy stuff, it was just like everything. It was just kind of this like, just like I need to experience everything because I've
Yeah.
been held back for so
Yeah.
long. So I think like in some ways that opened up new opportunities for me. And then I also think in other ways it's like I went too hard and like that kind of like damaged me in some ways. But then I learned from that. So it's not like I have any regrets or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But those first few years are truly a blur in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I want to say that, like, while things could be, like, I don't want to say traumatic, but tough and difficult and dangerous, maybe. Ooh.
Yeah.
But in that, I think danger and exploration, like having lived, just to tie this back into filmmaking, because I feel like as you make movies, as you are in movies, as you write movies, it's just a reflection of life. And I think that's why a lot of people, when they come to LA, it's a little chaotic, especially if the life was, maybe local, right?
Mm-hmm.
Local to your community. Um, for me, that was the same experience. Like after, before moving to college, I was like, oh, I'm from Seattle, everything's great. And I moved to Arizona, and it was hot and just dry, and it was a completely different world. And having gone through those experiences, do you think they've made you a better actor, a better artist?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, going through my divorce has made me a better actor, artist, person. Moving to LA, having to say goodbye to so many things in my life, having to die in so many ways and be reborn in other ways, letting go of things, inviting new things in, like changing how I feel about something, like my chemistry changing on like fundamental level so many times. 100%. Like my teacher, Deshaun K. Terry has said, and I don't know if he made this up or if he got this from someone else, that some actors act with their instrument and some actors act with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I have done a lot of acting with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to live your life
Yeah.
to pull on that. And so I think like those first few years and before that, growing up in Japan and then having that experience in Utah where I was just really, really lost for a long time, I pull on all of that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for you to be able to pull on it, I do think you have to like make an effort to heal from it too.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot of like, like meditating, I don't know, driving to the beach, just like finding things that like centered me and like healed me. Therapy, journaling,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Art is very much like therapy. I did music in college, and I was like, I'm going to be a musician because my parents were musicians, or my dad was. Both my dads. Stepdad.
Nice.
And yeah, I did the whole singer-songwriter thing. I had open mics. I'd record music. I met with producers. I went in studios, and I did it for therapy.
Yeah.
And it was starting to turn into a career. And at one point I was like, I'm good. I'm done. Like I've achieved all the therapy that I want from this artistic experience. And I don't think I've played since then. Like really kind of played, picked up a guitar here and there.
Really?
But yeah, it's been a weird experience. And then that's when I like there's a transition there where I started writing screenplays. This was back in 2005, 6, and then I wrote my first feature, and then I just never stopped.
What instrument did you play back
Guitar.
in? Guitar.
I played piano a long time ago. Like I was classically trained, and then I picked up guitar on my own. And that actually was a big foundation for me as a writer, because everything I create starts with music. Like I'll be like, oh, I want to write a story about, spies, or a rom-com in Detroit. It's a setup, I guess. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a
Yeah.
foreshadowing. There we go. Foreshadowing, episode 2.
Nice.
And I'll find music to score the show, the series, the film, and then that will stay with me. That music will anchor scenes and moments. I love
leading with music. Yeah,
right?
It's so effective.
Yeah. So like back in the 40s and 50s, you just show up and you're like, hey, I want a job, and they put you on a contract.
Yeah.
The studios would put you
my
on
name's
a contract.
I'm from. I don't know.
You're right. Yeah, from wherever.
I'm from Montana, and I just want to be a star.
And then they would teach you how to dance, sing, and like act.
Like, go to acting camp, kid, and you did the thing.
And they would have you for 10 years, and then you would be a star, or you just work bit roles.
Yeah.
But you don't do that anymore. You can't.
No.
I can't go to a studio a lot, throw my script over the fence, and then get a job.
You sure can't.
No. And I feel like that's what it used to be back in like the 80s and 90s. So now it's a lot more difficult. And comparing your entrance into the industry and getting on a show versus like some of your co-stars, which may have taken, a different path, having been either child actors or just kind of like,
they've been out here for a long time. Some of them started with stand-up and like writing. And
do you regret having taken the journey you did? Or
I don't regret anything, because I don't feel like sometimes I feel like choice really is an illusion. And we go the direction that we're going to go because in that moment it boils down to you don't feel like you have any other choice but to do this or to take this step ahead of you, put one foot in front of another. It's not like we have all of our choices laid out in front of us all the time and we're like, I'm going to choose this, and that is a completely autonomous decision that is made in a vacuum. And then later you can be like, I really regret doing that. Like, I really feel like, I do believe that, I do feel like we have responsibility to our lives, but I feel like choice is an illusion. And so I don't really believe in like having regret for myself, because like, what else was I going to do at the time? And how else was I supposed to change the circumstances I was born into, that I was funneled into because of my religion, my community, and what I believed was like a lack of choice. It's oftentimes we don't even know that we have other choices. So like, sometimes do I think things would be easier if my circumstances had been different in the past? 100%.
Yeah.
And sometimes do I look back and think maybe I could have utilized something a little bit better? Yeah, but I didn't know that at the time.
Hindsight is very powerful.
You just don't know. Yeah, you don't have hindsight when you're making those decisions. So definitely I've felt like a lot of jealousy about like other actors that I've worked with in the past, where if from my perspective, I'm like, man, it seems so like much easier for you. It seems like you've been doing this for so long and that you're always like booking things and that, you don't even know what you have because you're so, you're so used to like being a series regular, it's just your job for you, which also, but of course for them, it's not. Everyone has their own, like that's just a total judgment I'm making on someone that's maybe not accurate at all. But yeah. No, I definitely... But I still got really lucky with Atypical, because I think I booked that because the director of my first episode directed Youth and Consequences. And from what I understand, they had a hard time casting this role. Like they saw a lot of people for it, and it just like wasn't hitting. And then I don't know if Wendy called me in or not, or if I just happened to.
She was a casting director.
So she was the director for Youth and Consequences. She was directing the show. I know that they like couldn't find the person to play Gretchen, and then I get this audition, and the audition too was given to me by the production company who also had a management division who produced Youth and Consequences as well. So they were the ones who were repping me in LA. I can't tell if this is useful information for our listeners or if this is so boring.
No, this is great. Continue.
Okay. And then the casting office, Telsey, I'm not sure. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly how I got the audition, but I suspect that the director was. I suspect the director was involved in some way because I went in and did the audition. It was so fun, I felt good about it. And then the director like texted me, was like, I heard you auditioned. You know what I mean? So I think like, and then I got Gretchen. So, and then my first episode was with, Wendy Sandsler, who directed The Consequences, who's an legendary TV director. God, I love her. I haven't talked to her in so long, but she's just like, I think is really nice to like, it's just great to meet, women in this industry who are just like so powerful and then also really believe in you. Especially coming from the community I came from, there's not a lot of like, there's no female empowerment. And so I didn't have a lot of people like that to look up to growing up, and I had no one like that to guide me creatively. And so anyway, it was just for me massive to like meet someone like that who was so supportive. And anyway, so yeah, Wendy directed Youth and Consequences, and then she directed the Atypical thing, and then so I think it is all connected. And because I moved out to LA, I was able to like book that eventually for sure.
I'm glad you kind of talked a little bit about that, because this connection of things. And I think with a lot of people, I was going to say, what's your advice to, kind of people starting out, coming into LA with their, one role under their belt, or maybe nothing under their belt, but just a reel of shorts. I've noticed that everything you do, no matter how small, leads into this bigger thing. Like you did a YouTube show. And then that director's on a network show years down the road, and you're here, and you're supported by this team that also is tied to this show. The more things we do, I think, in this industry, and I think this is going to be my kind of advice for folks, is when you're starting to do things, even the small things matter. Like all these connections, all these friendships, all these networking moments, they're so valuable, because people will remember you. Oh my God, that one person I worked with 3, 4, 5 projects ago, they'll bring you in, and it just grows from there.
I hope so.
But I mean, if your journey doesn't stop there. You valiantly, I think, took up for theater in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Which is hard. Theater in Los Angeles is not what it is around the world. And that show ended up on at the Fringe, not Film Festival, the Fringe Festival?
Just Fringe, yeah. Just Hollywood Fringe, yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. And then that show got kind of transformed into a short, and I want to talk to you about that in episode 2.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming for coming and joining us on the pod, for chatting with us about your experience as an actor, and having this kind of interesting journey into Los Angeles, which is, I don't think interesting. I think everybody's journey is normal, like whatever that means.
There's a lot of interesting people here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. And Allie Rae, thank you for coming on.
See y'all next week.
Thank you for joining us at the CFA studio for another series of the Indiewood podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you find your podcasts, or on YouTube at the Cinematography for Actors YouTube channel. See you next week.
From the CFA network, Cinematography for Actors is bridging the gap through education and community building. Find out about us and listen to our other podcast at cinematographyforactors.com.
Cinematography for Actors Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit. For more information on fiscal sponsorship, donations, because we're tax exempt now, so it's a tax write-off, and upcoming education, you can email us at contact@cinematographyforactors.com. Thanks.